So Google just dropped something that I think is going to fly under the radar for a lot of people, but it might be one of the most important AI releases of the year. And no, I'm not talking about Gemini. I'm talking about Gemma 4. So, 3 days ago, Google released a family of AI models that are genuinely very powerful. We're talking math scores that jump from 20% up to 89% in one generation, and they made this stuff completely free. Not just free with a catch, not free for a certain number of users, genuinely free, open source, do whatever you want with it. So, in this video, I'm going to break down what Gemma 4 actually is, why the license matters more than the benchmarks, and what this means for you if you're running a business or thinking about how AI fits into your work. So, let me set the stage real quick because right now, most of us are using AI through services. You're logging into ChatGPT, you log into Claude, you type something in, and then a server somewhere processes it and sends you back an answer. Now, every time that happens, somebody is paying. Either you're paying a subscription, or if you're a developer, you're paying per token or per word, basically. And that model works fine for a lot of people, but there's a growing number of businesses that are starting to ask a really important question. Hey, do I have to keep renting this or can I just own it? And that's the question that Gemma 4 answers. And the answer is yes, you can, and it's surprisingly pretty good. So Google has been releasing these open models called Gemma for a while now. So think of Gemma as the open source little sibling of Gemini, which is their big commercial model. But with this release, the little sibling just had a massive growth spurt, and Google changed the license to Apache 2.0, which I'll explain why that matters in a second. It's basically the gold standard for saying, hey, do whatever you want with this. So, what did Google actually release? Well, they released four models, each designed for a different use case. At the top, you've got the 31B model. Now, that's 31 billion parameters. Now, this is the one that's the heavyweight. It's ranked number 3 on the Arena AI leaderboard, which is basically where people vote on which AI gives better answers in blind tests. And this thing is competitive with models that even cost money to use. Then there's the 26 billion parameter mixture of experts model. Now, this one is kind of the star of the show for me because it's technically 26 billion parameters, but it only activates about 4 billion at a time. So the best way to think of it is like a team of specialists. Instead of having just one person who knows every single thing trying to answer your question, you've got a team where the right expert steps up for each question. Now, the result is that it gets about 97% of the big model's quality at a fraction of the computing cost. Now, below that, you've got the E4B and E2B. Now, these are the tiny ones designed to run on phones and edge devices. We're talking, about 5 gigabytes of memory, but the nice thing is that your phone can run these. Now, I don't usually lead with benchmarks because they can feel a bit abstract, but these numbers do tell a story. On the AIME math benchmark, Gemma went from 20.8% with the last version to 89.2%. On coding, the live code bench, it went from 29 to 80%. And on graduate level science reasoning, it went from 42 to nearly 86%. Now, that's not just an incremental upgrade, that's a generational leap in one release. And the crazy thing here is that all four models support context windows of up to 256,000 tokens. They can produce images and audio natively, and they can work with over 140 languages. Now, here's the thing that I think most people are missing when they're covering the story. Now, we know the benchmarks are impressive, but the real story is the license. So, Google released Gemma 4 under Apache 2.0. Now, that's a specific open source license, and it basically means use it however you want. Build a product with it, sell that product, modify the model. Don't pay us a dime, don't put our logo on it, and don't ask permission, which is crazy to say. Now, compare that to Meta's Llama 4. Now, Llama 4 is technically open, but it comes with restrictions. If your product has more than 700 million monthly active users, you need a special license. You have to include built with Llama branding, and there's an acceptable use policy that Meta can enforce. Now, for most small businesses, those restrictions probably aren't going to matter in practice. You're not likely hitting 700 million users, but the thing is when you're building a product or a system for your business, you want to know the ground rules aren't going to change. Apache 2.0 is a promise. Hey, this is yours, period. And this is where I believe it gets really interesting for business owners and professionals. So right now, every time you use ChatGPT's API or Claude's API or any of these cloud AI services, you're paying what some people are calling a token tax. Every word in, every word out, that's going to be money. But for a business that's doing a lot of AI processing, that can add up really fast. Now with Gemma 4, you can run the model on your own hardware. even your own server, or even your own laptop for the smaller models. And once you've got it all set up, the marginal cost of each query is basically just electricity, and that's it. The nice thing here is that the data backs this up. For businesses with high volume, predictable AI workloads, running locally cuts costs by 70 to 90% compared to cloud APIs. And this isn't just about the money, it's also about something that I think is even more important for a lot of businesses, and that's privacy. When you send a customer query to ChatGPT, that data is leaving your building. It goes to OpenAI servers, and for a lot of businesses like healthcare, finance, legal, and even just businesses that handle sensitive client data, that can be a real concern. With Gemma 4 running locally, your data never is leaving your network and it's staying specifically on your machine. So, what does this mean for you if you're running a business? Well, it means that you've got a real choice now. You don't have to just rent, you can also own. Gemma 4 didn't just happen in isolation. We're in the middle of an open source AI race that is moving incredibly fast. Now, 2 years ago, open source models were a curiosity. They were interesting for researchers and hobbyists, but they couldn't compete with the big commercial models for real work. But that gap has been closing insanely fast. You've now got Meta with Llama 4, Alibaba with Qwen 3.5, Mistral in France, DeepSeek out of China, and now Google with Gemma 4. All of these companies and labs are releasing powerful models for free, and they're all competing with each other, which means they're going to keep getting better. Right now, Gemma 4 has the best efficiency story. That 26 billion parameter model gives you near frontier quality with way less computing power. Llama 4 has a massive 10 million token context window, which is wild, but its smallest model is still 109 billion total parameters. That's a server only situation. Then we have Qwen 3.5, which is still competitive across the board, especially at the really big sizes, and it's also Apache 2.0. But here's the thing I keep coming back to for people like you and I. The question isn't which model wins the benchmark Olympics, the question is, hey, which one can I actually use? And for most businesses, actually use means can I run it without a data center to any extent? Does it work on hardware that I can afford? And is the license simple enough that I don't need a lawyer? On all of those questions, Gemma 4 is really, really compelling. The 26 billion model runs on a consumer GPU. The small models run on a phone, and Apache 2.0 is about as simple as licenses get. All right, so here's where I want to get just a little bit philosophical with you because I think Gemma 4 isn't just about a product release. It's more so a signal of where we're heading. For the last few years, the AI story has been hey, we have a handful of big companies building the models and everyone else pays to use them. It's very similar to how the early internet worked. You had to go to a computer lab or a library to get online. Now, eventually, the technology got small enough and cheap enough that everyone had it in their pocket. Now, that's what's happening with AI right now. Models that require a data center 2 years ago can now run on your desktop. Models that require a desktop can now run on your phone, and they're getting better while they're getting smaller. Edge AI deployment in manufacturing alone grew 3 times between 2025 and 2026. Retail chains are running small language models on servers at individual stores, and healthcare providers are running AI locally to keep patient data on premise. So, what does this look like in practice? Well, let me paint a few pictures. First, it could be that a law firm that handles sensitive client documents can now use AI to draft, summarize, and analyze without any client data ever touching a third party server, and that's a compliance nightmare that just went away. A manufacturing company can now run AI quality inspection on the factory floor, even when the internet connection is spotty, because the model lives on a local device. And a small marketing agency can run AI assisted content workflows all day long without watching their API bill climb because there is no API bill in the first place. Now, these aren't hypotheticals. This is what's happening right now, and Gemma 4 just made the entry point a whole lot lower. So, here's what I would actually recommend if you're watching this and thinking about how this applies to your business. First, I would figure out your AI spending. If you're using AI tools in your business right now, add up what you're actually paying for. This could be subscriptions, API costs, just all of it. And a lot of people are going to be surprised by this number because then that will give you a baseline for whether local AI could save you some real money. Second is to ask yourself, hey, is data privacy a concern? And if you're in healthcare, finance, legal, or just any industry where client data is sensitive, local AI isn't just cheaper, it might become necessary here. Because Gemma 4 running on your own hardware means that your data stays yours. And third, if you're curious, just try it. The smaller Gemma 4 models can run on a decent laptop. You don't need a server farm. Google has made these available on Hugging Face, and there are tools like Olama and LM Studio that make running local models surprisingly simple. You could literally have this running in under 30 minutes. And look, I'm not saying that everyone should be ditching ChatGPT and Claude. These tools are amazing, and that's tools that I use. And for a lot of people, the convenience of cloud AI is worth the cost. But what Gemma 4 represents is choice, real choice, and that's powerful. So here's what strikes me about this moment. 2 years ago, if I told you that you could run a model on your laptop that scores 89% on graduate level math and 80% on real world coding challenges for free with no restrictions, you probably would have laughed in my face. And that felt like that was science fiction. Well, it's not science fiction anymore. And the gap between what you can own and what you have to rent is shrinking every single month. So, if this helped you think about AI differently, do me a favor and hit subscribe. I'm breaking down what's actually happening in AI every single week in a way that makes sense for you and your work. Also, drop a comment below and let me know if you are running any local AI models or if this is something completely new to you. See you in the next one.